Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Alison Cray, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Chief Petty Officer David Osborne. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Holy Family Primary School, Merewether, and the Sacred Heart Primary School, South Mount Druitt. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Trevor Clark. Trevor Turner Clark was born on the 10th of July 1924 in Benalla, Victoria, to Trevor Turner Clark Sr. and Isabella Clark. Growing up, Clark Jr., who was known to his friends and family by the nickname Neb, attended Benalla High School, then Scots College in Melbourne. A talented sportsman, Clark was awarded the Harry and Keith Davis Prize for proficiency in sport and study. And at the age of 14, he had won the Benalla Open Golf Tournament. He represented his school in football and tennis and had won the state under-19s doubles tennis championship. After his final year at Scots College, Clark was enrolled to study law at the University of Melbourne. But before beginning university, he enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 1st of January 1943 at the age of 18. Following his enlistment to the RAAF, Clark began training as a pilot. After his initial training in Australia, he left Sydney for overseas service on the 26th of November 1943. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, Clark was one of almost 27,500 RAAF pilots, navigators, wireless operators, gunners and engineers who, throughout the course of the war, joined the Royal Air Force squadrons or Australian squadrons based in Britain. After his arrival in Britain, Clark undertook further specialist training until February 1945, when he was posted to the number 460 Squadron, Royal Australian Air Force. Number 460 Squadron would become the most highly decorated Australian squadron in the Bomber Command and was the squadron that suffered the highest casualties. Flying twin-engined Vickers Wellington medium bombers and then four-engined Arvo Lancaster heavy bombers, the squadron lost over 1,000 men, Australian, British, Canadians, New Zealanders and South Africans. Almost 600 Australians from the 460 Squadron are listed here on the Roll of Honour. On the night of the 5th of March 1945, 21 Lancasters from the 460 Squadron were taking part in a large raid targeting industrial and rail centre at Chemnitz, Germany. During the operation, the Lancaster, in which Clark was second pilot, crashed near the small village of Fife, near Spargenburg in central Germany. The mayor reported that the plane had circled low with its engines on fire before crashing. Clark and all 7 of his crewmates, fellow Australians Squadron Leader John Holmes, flying officers Donald Hudspeth and Evan Bernadette, Flight Lieutenant Thomas Morgan and Warrant Officer Elan May, British crewmates Sergeant John Young and Sergeant Ralph Hayward from Newfoundland were killed. The bodies of the crew were removed and buried in the Fife churchyard, but they were later reinterred in the British and Commonwealth War Cemetery in Hanover, Germany. Trevor Clark had been with the squadron for less than 2 weeks. He was 20 years old. Upon his headstone reads the following epitaph, chosen by his family. His life, a beautiful memory. His absence, our silent sorrow. After the loss of his son, Trevor Clark Sr. wrote, "Life is going to be very empty without my dear Neb, as he was the one and only pal I ever had." In the 1960s, he made the long journey to Germany to visit his son's grave. Trevor Clark is listed here on the Roll of Honour to my left, among some 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of the original gravesite is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant Trevor Turner Clark, who gave his life for us and for our freedoms, and then in the hope for a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish all of you a very good evening.